Have you finished moving? Hurry up and leave, will you? There's no place for someone like you. Saying this, Helen, my mother-in-law, laughs loudly over the phone. Her voice is terribly grating. Poor thing. Right now, Helen doesn't know the situation she's in. For all the harassment she's done to me, I'll show her plenty of hell from now on. My name is Gloria. I'm a 30-year-old housewife. I live with my husband, Victor. We're a dual-income couple supporting each other financially. However, since Victor is clumsy with his hands, I had to take on most of the housework. So I work from home. Victor had been eager to build a house since we got married, and he worked hard for it. Seeing Victor like that, I felt motivated too. 2 years into our marriage, we finally got our dream house. A new building is indeed beautiful, with shining floors. Looking forward to our new life together, I said to Victor, "Together, we can certainly do it." That's what I believed. At Victor's strong wish, we built our new home near his parents' house. Apparently, Helen had a minor illness and wasn't in need of care, but he wanted to keep an eye on her. Helen, my mother-in-law's family, after all. If she's in trouble, I thought, I should accept Victor's wish, but I never imagined it would turn out like this. A few weeks after moving into our new home, Helen visited. It was an unexpected visit, and I was flustered, but I managed to serve some cookies I had at home. Sitting on the couch, sipping the tea I made, Helen started talking calmly. "You know, Gloria, now that you're here, I'll be honest. How are you as my son's wife?" What I blurted out without thinking caused Helen to sigh with exasperation. "I heard from Victor that you're a good wife, but only offering such poor cookies to a guest. And you never visit our house, even though you married my son. I think a son's wife would come to her in-laws' house if she's home. If you have time to spare at home, you should come to my house. There's always so much to do at my place, do you understand?" Helen says, pressing the point. Okay, was the only foolish response I could make. Helen wasn't like this when we first met. She seemed kind and cheerful, someone people would like. "If you have any troubles, rely on me. Take your time getting used to things." I did take advantage of her kindness, but I never expected such a drastic change. To my meek reply, Helen frowned and said, "You don't seem to have the guts to be my son's wife. Starting tomorrow, I'm coming here every day. Straightening out a son's wife's twisted nature is also a mother-in-law's job, isn't it?" Saying so, Helen laughs as if she's enjoying herself. Meanwhile, I grimace with anxiety about the future. Every day, do I have to deal with Helen like this? Cold sweat drips down my face at the thought of what's to come. But regardless of how I felt after finishing the cookies, Helen said those cheap cookies were surprisingly enjoyable and left on her own accord. That's when my days of hell began. True to her declaration, Helen started coming to our house every day. Her visits were at regular times, sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon. I always prepared snacks, but Helen would still complain. "Cheap stuff again." Thinking it might be better to prepare something she liked from the start, I asked her, only to be met with the absurd accusation, "Can't you even understand my feelings, Gloria? There's dust over there. Clean it up right now." "Oh, Gloria, you're going to ruin the clothes washing them like that. Do it again. That's for dinner? Terrible. How can you feed Victor something like this?" Helen complained about anything she laid her eyes on. Even if I thought there was no problem, Helen didn't care if she was offending me. One day, Helen visited on a weekend. Victor was also off from work at home, yet Helen harassed me just like any other day. Seeing me rushing around at Helen's behest, Victor pointed and said, "You're lucky to be trained by Mom." After Helen left that day, I desperately told Victor about how hard Helen's treatment was, but he wouldn't listen, brushing me off with, "Mom's just thinking of you in her way." When I insisted it was too much for me mentally, Victor began to get irritated, shouting, "Do you hate Mom that much?" Feeling it was pointless to talk to him, I stopped confiding in Victor. I started feeling physically exhausted. Despite feeling tired, I couldn't sleep. Once I got into bed, the anxiety for the next day hit me before sleepiness. I knew I'd be criticized again tomorrow. What will she say next? Such thoughts kept circulating in my mind. Gradually, even going to bed became hard, and I started working and doing housework all night. My body rapidly accumulated fatigue and became emaciated. "Gloria, what's with that face? Victor would be scared seeing you like that. You look like a monster," Helen mocked. Looking in the mirror, I saw dark circles under my eyes and sunken cheeks, a face I couldn't show to others. A self-mocking smile escaped me. "Really? You're so incompetent. With a wife like you, Victor might be hindered at work. You can't even do housework properly. And then there's that face you greet him with. Poor Victor." "Gloria, you should leave today," Helen suddenly demanded. Stunned by her sudden demand to leave, I stood motionless, but Helen said, "You must," and left. Defying Helen would only bring more harsh words. Mentally unstable, I packed my things and prepared to leave. A few minutes later, I received a call from Helen. "Have you finished moving? Leave quickly. There's no place for someone like you. Be grateful you could stay in that house at all." Saying this, Helen laughed sadly on the phone. She sounded like a hero who'd just vanquished a villain, conveying her sense of fulfillment. I left the house just as Helen commanded, the house that was built to fulfill our dreams. Then I went back to my parents' house and explained everything. Upon learning everything, my parents were furious, but they first treated me to delicious food, letting me rest. There's truly a sense of security at one's parents' home. I couldn't articulate my complaints well, but my mom and dad responded with kind words like, "That must have been hard," and "I see." I realized I hadn't been back home since the issues with Helen started. My parents must have been shocked to see their daughter so emaciated after so long. Feeling guilty for being such a disobedient daughter, my phone vibrated. It was a call from Helen. Hesitantly, I answered the call, and Helen's panicked voice came through. "You come back right now." After demanding I leave, she was telling me to come back. I was astounded by her unreasonable and selfish demand, but something seemed off. Helen explained the situation, and I was shocked. Apparently, Victor came home, realized I was gone, and contacted Helen, who was likely visiting that day. Hearing from Helen that she had kicked me out, Victor turned pale. That makes sense. After all, the house we lived in was in my name. Even though we were a dual-income couple, most of our living expenses were covered by my salary. Victor's salary was shockingly low, as evident from his payslips. There was no way Victor could afford to build a new house, and our dream of owning one was nearly shattered. Seeing Victor try his best, I decided to support him by building the house since I took out the loan. Naturally, the house was in my name. Having learned this from Victor, Helen was now panicking. "I'm sorry, but I'm not coming back," I told her. Helen responded, "Don't say that. It was my fault." I replied with a final blow. "Also, since I'm not living there anymore, I'll be vacating the house. Please take care of it." Wait! Ignoring Helen's growing desperation, I hung up the phone. I blocked her number to avoid any unpleasant calls. The next day I proceeded with vacating the house as I had declared to Helen. This meant Victor had to leave the house too. What he did next was no longer my concern. After that, I hired a lawyer. He was a friend of my dad's, known for being quite skilled. I had secretly recorded Helen's terrible behavior, which I played for the lawyer. The recordings also included Victor's terrible behavior. Hearing them, the lawyer said, "With this, you can get a substantial amount in alimony." I left everything to the reliable lawyer and was able to divorce Victor. Following the lawyer's advice, I saw a doctor and was diagnosed with depression, which increased the alimony. After that, I received message after message from Victor. The contents were all like, "Please forgive me. I'm truly sorry. Please give me another chance." With no house and a low salary, Victor couldn't afford the hefty alimony, but I ignored all his requests and blocked his messages. A few days later, while relaxing at home, a loud doorbell rang. It was Helen and Victor at the door. I ignored them, but they started pounding on the door, calling out, "Gloria!" My parents were out and couldn't return soon, so I reluctantly responded through the monitor. "Hello?" Hearing my voice, they hastily started apologizing at the front door. "Gloria, I'm truly sorry. Please give Victor another chance." "I'm sorry I couldn't be there for you as a husband. I'll try to be a better support. Please come back." They were only saying what suited them. Now, these were the same people who had scorned and laughed at me. Now they were asking for my help. I couldn't help but snort. Victor angrily shouted, "There's no need to laugh." He raged at the door. Helen retreated in fear. I sensed neighbors coming out due to the commotion. Frozen in fear, I didn't know what to do. The door kept being pounded on. It was sturdy, but what if it broke? Then, a savior appeared. "What are you doing?" said a police officer who appeared on the monitor. It seems a neighbor must have called them. Victor, who was causing a scene, was restrained and taken away. This incident helped me finalize my divorce from Victor. Moreover, I received a substantial amount of alimony. The behavior of Victor and Helen quickly spread among the neighbors, making them feel very uncomfortable. I think it's a natural consequence for all the harassment they did to me. It seems Helen had been visiting my house without telling her husband, and when he found out about this commotion, he decided to divorce her. Helen begged and pleaded, but her ex-husband's decision was firm, and they ended up divorcing. Since the house they lived in was sold, Victor and Helen are now living in an old apartment, alone and miserable. Because of the incident at my parents' house, the amount of alimony I could claim from Victor increased even more. It became an amount Victor, with his low salary, couldn't possibly pay. I demanded the payment in full, so Victor had to borrow money from consumer finance companies and is now desperately trying to pay off his debt. Helen and he are reportedly working tirelessly day and night, even going to construction sites in the evenings. Having lost their house and burdened with debt, the two soon sought help from relatives. But having learned of their behavior, not a single relative sided with them. In fact, they distanced themselves from Victor and Helen. Unable to rely on the ex-husband or blood relatives, they even reached out to friends, only to be continually cut off. According to a mutual friend of Victor's and mine, they kept sending messages like, "We have no money and please help us." And if ignored, they'd repeatedly call. Their actions were undoubtedly unreasonable. There's probably no one willing to help them now. This is what happens when you only think of yourself. If they had thought a little more about others, tried to help others, or even shown a little willingness to reach out to me, maybe things wouldn't have ended like this. Meanwhile, I've been recuperating at my parents' house, continuing my work, and have started dating a man I met through it. He knows about my past marriage and gently says it must have been hard. He's considerate of my still recovering mental state, supports me at work, and takes me to beautiful places on weekends. As he often visits my parents to see me, they think that he seems okay. I was invited to go to a jewelry shop together, so perhaps a happy future with him is just around the corner. This time I won't make the same mistakes. I'll say no to things I dislike and resist. I'll take action to improve things before they break. It's not just for me. It's necessary to stay happy with him forever, to move forward, and not make the same mistakes. I'll do my best